it's at like 3.7. Hello. Oh, it's loud. Oh, yeah. Yeah, just us. Yeah, it's great. Hello, welcome to Ideas on Tap. So I usually don't ring that, so that was kind of a first. But thanks for coming down. We certainly want to go through some great presentations today. We got a great lineup. I'm going to have a couple people come up here shortly. We're going to do some Q&A. We even have actual trivia game, so I'm pretty excited about that because I love trivia. And we'll get started with an actual Q&A session with the two of us right here. So I'll introduce my CEO, Brendan King, and we'll have some chat.
Yeah, so, oh yeah, don't tell anybody. I'm trying to avoid that. Yeah. So this is why I didn't want to come up today. So they asked me today to do a quick intro and introduce Justin. But before that, they asked me to talk a little bit about what Ideas on Tap is and why we have it. So I thought I'd just sort of go through a little bit of the history. A lot of the folks that are in the room already know it. But Ideas on Tap has been something we've done at Vendasta since we started, I guess 10 years ago, which seems like a heck of a long time. But we started in Innovation Place, actually. And it started by on Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, we would have a few beers, and all of our, we didn't really have very many customers, but all of our people in the city and other folks that knew us would come over and have a beer with us. And then as we moved to 33rd Street, which was just really in the first year, we used to do presentations where folks from Vendasta would get up and they would show their holiday they just went on and talk about the city, and they would do it was really, really informal, and we did a lot of sort of informal things. But as we grew, we realized, we had to we had more and more sort of visitors coming. So it was always open to visitors. So we had folks from the community coming in and joining into the conversation. And so we turned it into kind of a mini TED Talk. And so the talks you're going to see today, I've been looking through, they're pretty fantastic, actually. And I think the quality is quite high, having been able to experience different talks, around the world. I think that the talks here sometimes are some of the best that I've seen. And so they're like mini TED Talks. I think other people in the city have started to do it too. But anyway, that's the background of Ideas on Tap. I want you guys to enjoy it. We like the feedback. So if you have any feedback about what we could do better or what's not working for you, hey, please feel free to give that to us. Now, Justin's going to be our MC. And we always donate to a charity. That's the other thing about Ideas on Tap. And our charity is usually associated with children. This charity is the Heart and Stroke Foundation, right, Justin? So it's the Charity Hockey Heroes. Now, not that I'm surprised, because you have a big heart. Anyone who actually knows Justin is going to find out, he's a killer sales guy, but he also has a big heart. So tell me, how did you get involved with Hockey Heroes?
So I guess it kind of started when I was 10 years old. I had a hockey coach back in the day. His name was Rick Lamontine, and about 8 years ago in my hometown rink, again, small town rinks, they don't really have a lot of, things to help out when there's an accident or anything like that, but he actually collapsed on the ice and we didn't have like a defibrillator, and he passed away, and his son and I had played hockey together. We're the same age growing up and playing minor hockey, and he had asked me and a couple other of the team members that from back when we were like in novice to be on his team for his dad, and I've been doing this now for 3 or 4 years. So that's the reason why I do it.
Oh, that's awesome. So can you give the folks in the room an idea about how what you've done, what Hockey Heroes does, and some of the events you've done, where they could donate or how they could participate?
Sure. So the events kind of take place this weekend. It's at TCU. They have a a lineup of NHLers or ex-NHLers that come in, and they pretty much fundraise, I would say, for the last 2 months or so. The cool things about it is after the accident had happened and then we put in our team, they actually donated a defibrillator to our home rink. So heaven forbid that ever happens again. There's something there to hopefully help out. And certainly as we get up in age, there's ones at like the Gemini rink that I play in and stuff. So that's really the reason why they're always trying to raise money for not only a cure, but to prevent it from happening again.
So on a personal note, some of you probably don't know Justin that well, but he's, besides being a heck of a salesperson, he actually is a pretty heck of a good hockey player. Can you tell everyone about your hockey career just a little bit?
Well, I'm not really a good hockey player anymore. I was fortunate enough. Actually, what's even a smaller story to this is that I actually started playing hockey the year that fellow, like when he was my first coach, right? So he really made me love the game, and I've been pretty fortunate enough, obviously, to play overseas, and met a lot of people in my hockey career, and a lot of great friends, and that's really, I mean, that's just like anybody else that participates in any extracurricular activities. It's what it's for, is to meet people.
All right. Well, we won't dig into that too much, but Justin has played overseas. He's got some stories to tell. Corner him afterwards if you want to hear some of his stories. He's better than he makes out to be. Anyway, Justin is our host tonight, so thanks very much, and I'm going to let you take it from here.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. So before I introduce the first speaker, that is what the charity, we're having 50-50. That's what the 50-50 draw is for. So I appreciate anybody that buys 50-50 tickets. Thank you very much. And at the front table, I would assume, and then we'll have people walking around. I'm supposed to walk around, so I'll make sure I do that and come say hi to everybody. So the first speaker is my agency cohort manager. Is that your title? Is that what that is? I don't know. She just comes, harasses me, and is like, "Did you close anything today?" So if Jackie could come up here.
Don't screw this up. That's it. Thank you. Just kidding. As Justin just mentioned, we've in the beginning of the year, we sort of did a little bit of a shift in teams and how teams are organized. And so now I'm super lucky to be working with some of our customer-facing teams, including Justin in the sales group, Success on Demand, our partner development group. So really jazzed about that. I'm going to be talking today about growth, but I'm going to be talking about it from a customer experience angle, and how customer experience and growth sort of go hand in hand. I'm Jackie. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer here at Vendasta. That's my little baby Lex. The woman with a wine in one hand and a baby in the other is Jean. And so thank you, Jean, for covering for my childcare, who wouldn't stay this late. So, so one of the things that for people who have worked with me or have me on Slack and have seen my emoji, you know that I'm kind of obsessed with funnels. And for those who aren't maybe familiar with funnels, I'm obsessed with these. I love beer bongs. I love... No, this is not the funnel I'm talking about. But before we get into that, can anyone tell me what shape this is? It's not a rectangle. It is a funnel. It's a perfect funnel. Okay, Jackie, what the heck are you talking about? Well, really what funnels are they're just journeys. And the steeper the funnel, the worse the journey. And the more shallow or broad the funnel, the better the journey. Because it means all the customers are coming in at the beginning are making their way through. So my job, and really everyone here at Vendasta, is how do we widen the funnel? How do we make sure we're attracting the right customers at the beginning and ushering them and helping usher towards success or wherever they're trying to be? I'm not allowed to move, and this is really hard for me. So if I start to sway, okay, thanks, Phil. So if anyone's been to a talk at Vendasta, you've probably seen this diagram. I was actually Googling as I was preparing this presentation. I was like, I gotta switch this up. Like, customer journey funnel go Google, and this is actually the first Google result. So maybe they're just caching me because I work at Vendasta. Interested if anyone else gets this. But what this is basically the customer journey funnel, right from awareness to how they find you, to maybe what your reputation is or the trust, and then of course once they convert and continue to be a customer. Why are we talking about customer experience at this Vendasta Ideas on Tap? Well, it comes down to two things. 2020, and if you've worked at Vendasta and folks in the audience, you know how much data is a big part of our lives. Well, they're predicting by 2020 customer experience, data is actually going to take up the analytics projects. People wanting to know more about their customers, more about the customer journey. So Stephen, I hate to tell you, but you got a whole lot more coming your way. And also, after revenue, according to the C-suite and the survey they asked, is after revenue, people are starting to tune into, well, revenue is really just a function of net promoter score or really customer experience. So this is very, very important topic for now. So I just want to talk to you today about a couple customer journeys, and then we're going to wrap it home with what this means and maybe even how we're practicing at Vendasta. So quick little story. I, having come back to work recently, I went through a customer journey of my own. And one was I need to find childcare so I can come back. And Lex, being 7 months, it's hard to get into daycares for anyone of you with kids, you know. So I searched, hey, I'm looking for a nanny. What do I ask nannies? And I actually had one in mind at this point. And so Google search results, I got 35 questions to ask a nanny. Whoa, this looks all right, sweet. So I downloaded that template and I looked at it. And then all of a sudden I was, in their inbound funnel. I was caught and they were drip marketing me. I'm like, I don't even know what you guys sell, but I'm not interested, right? So I was opening up these emails, but just nuking them, deleting them. And then I looked at, okay, a nanny contract, I need that. And then again, of course, this nanny page came up and I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll look around a little bit. I had already had sort of a nanny tentative planned, but I was like, well, maybe I'll create a profile and I'll just look around and see what's out there, right? I decided I'd go on one coffee before I made my selection on my nanny, and I found who is now our nanny, Leilani. She's wonderful. Leilani the nanny, the irony. But the point is I had found my nanny. I had gotten to success. I don't even know what this company did, but they helped usher me not only find the interview questions, but they actually connected me with a nanny. They hadn't sold me anything, right? Then I get this email a couple days later, and I'm like, okay, great. Got the nanny. We're getting close. I'm getting back to work. All my things in order. All of a sudden, I get this email, and it's like, hey, I don't know if you know why I'm emailing you. I tend to be brief, but have you thought about payroll? And do you know about remittances? And you have to do CPP and EI, and I'm not an accountant. And all of a sudden, they're talking about, I don't know how to do this. So all of a sudden, I became in their customer cohort, but I didn't even look at a single option. I knew immediately I was going to this company because they had helped me through my journey. So if you think about customer success, they actually made me successful according to my need before I was even a customer. And when it came to that next purchase decision, they were the first person I looked at. Okay, how many people in the room are in tech? Consider themselves in tech. How many people are not in tech? All right, so cool, Jackie, this is great for a tech company. What does this mean for me? I'm going to tell you a different story recently. Coming back to work, and I had to tell the government of Canada, I'm coming back to work, just let you know, typed it in, and I wanted to say, stop all of mat leave, whatever. So got onto their website after trying to figure out where to go, and click path from hell. I don't know if anyone has gone on CRA. I have no idea how to stop mat leave. Anyway, so then I was on the line, of course, for like hours upon hours, some of it in this atrium, walking around and trying to figure out how do you stop this. Anyways, for people who've gone back, you're like, whoa, Jackie, this is way more complicated. Like, it's not that hard. My point is, if you have customers, you have an experience, or they have an experience. So this is not just exclusively for tech. This is for every business. So one thing that's important is in order to understand your customer journey, you need to understand your customers. So we did at Vendasta what's called persona mapping, and I want you to watch the evolution. And this might not be exactly the order of operations we did it, but it's pretty close. So first we looked at personas in a couple of different ways. I'm a marketing manager from a newspaper company looking for marketing automation software. I'm a vice president of product looking for Yellow Page organization for digital solutions in order to increase my retention. So at first, when we looked at personas, we went on this leadership offsite to Ancient Spirals, I think it was, and we created these personas. We're like, yes, this is it, according to what role in the company. If they're in marketing, they need this. If they're in product, they need this. Didn't quite have it right, because turns out the marketing manager might be from a different background and a sales manager, and there might be different needs in that. So then we looked at, okay, there's a newspaper company and a Yellow Pages organization. We got it. We understand our personas. This is perfect. We put posters up all around the atrium. I think they're down in sales now. It's like, well, it turns out newspapers have certain attributes, and there's certain heuristics that apply. Yellow Pages organizations have certain heuristics, but we're not quite there yet. We're getting closer. Okay, it's based on what they're looking for. One needs marketing automation software, the other needs digital solutions. Awesome. When they're coming in, great, we got it. We've got the pitch deck ready. We've got everything to sell them. We've nailed this persona thing. But as they sort of traveled along their journey, I agree, Lex, it was not right. As they traveled along their journey, we were like, well, what are you trying to do with this marketing automation software? What kind of digital solutions? And tell me a little bit more, digging in. And now where we've arrived at is, what are they trying to do within their organization? What is, so that piece, that is, yeah, you might be a marketing manager, you might be from a newspaper organization, you might need marketing automation software, but before you tell me all of the symptoms on top of what are you actually trying to do? It's increase leads and it's increase retention. I think I might do another chapter a year from now and be like, we were wrong all along, it's now this new thing, but that's sort of where we're at right now. And our whole customer success and BDRs and SDRs, right from the very first touch point in marketing, is understanding what is that need and trying to understand deeply as they expand trust with us, which Michael's going to talk about later, how is that need evolving? So most recently, we've sort of done a shift, as I mentioned. First, we were sort of organized in our company around product lines. And so we still do have product teams. Then we looked at, well, maybe there's more to this. Maybe it's a marketplace, maybe a product organization in the platform. And most recently, what we've done is we've said, well, what if we organized around our customers? And that's where we're at right now, is there's still the unique needs of our customers, but we're looking at from agencies who have a very common set of needs versus enterprises who have a different set of needs. And yes, they will overlap and do overlap. How do we super serve both of those in the needs that they need? All right, lesson number 3, creating an experience. Someone wise once told me, you can't design a journey, but you can design for a journey. I don't know who this was. I'm giving Brian credit because all of the bright things come from Brian usually. But it really stuck with me. And what this means is you might design the perfect path for your customers, but if they cut across the lawn, you've all seen that meme, if they cut across the lawn, it's go in that, right? So now, and where are all the hiccups? And so this is really, we've gone back to this. We've been talking about this for like 4 years, but we've recently gone back with our teams and agency. We did an offsite, and we had each of the teams that looked in these funnels, these mini funnels, say, here's what my interaction is with these customers, and this is what I see. Now, in our business, when a customer is signed, that's actually the beginning. It's not like, sweet, we've landed them, on to the next one. That's just the beginning of our relationship with them. Really, what we're trying to do is make them successful with the Vendasta platform. And in between that, we call the Valley of Death, which means when they signed as a customer, between when they're seeing success with the platform, how quickly can we get them over that Valley of Death and to success, right? So what we did is we mapped out all these things, and we found actually there's a ton of overlap, there's a ton of gaps, and sometimes when one team thinks this is a nice smooth transition, the customer is actually like, I didn't hear from anyone for weeks. So we're now in the process of understanding, well, what are some of those roadblocks right in marketing? And maybe later on, once they've had the sale and the credit card is rejected, maybe there's a shut door, and oops, there's a booby trap after onboarding, and oh, an alligator pops out of nowhere, right? Like, we can't do something with the product. And so we're just trying to go back and continually understand where are these kinks we can work out so we can get our customers to success faster, and how can the teams help usher over that, right? So that's all I have today for the punchline. Is number 1 is, if you have customers, I'm trying to think of businesses that don't have customers. Maybe the government. But if you have, well, yes, Yeah, I shouldn't bash the government. The government is great. Sorry, we just need to help them with their online. But every industry has customers, and so you need to understand. And I encourage you all to try this. Go through what your customers go through, but understand first what they're looking for. Because even as I'm walking through Vendasta software, I don't know if I deeply understand what our customers face every day. And sometimes it takes sitting next to them and watching them go through everything to understand that. You can't design a journey, but you can design for a journey, and you can help optimize that experience by removing blockers. So it's not necessarily about creating the best path, but really understanding what that path is and then moving things out of their way. And basically eliminating gaps in those blockers is going to be the key, as long as you have that urge to get to that success metric or success at the end of the day. Hopefully you can help usher your customers there. So with that, go home tonight. Understand what your customers go through, trying to find what you do or what you offer, and I'd love to hear about it. Thanks so much.
Don't want that.
Yeah, I don't know where oh, there he is.
I had to go steal the microphone back from Levi. Good. Thanks, Jackie. That was great. So we'll get our next speaker up here shortly. His name's Levi, and Levi will take us through a little bit more on that customer journey. So if Levi, you want to come up? Cue cards, eh?
Yeah, I've got a couple of cue cards. All right, good afternoon, everyone. My talk is called Not Just Better. I'm Levi, and I'm a product manager here at Vendasta. So 4.3 stars right now is average for products and services. 2019, 4.3 is average. So if we want to build something that's truly viral, that really compels people to talk about our product and to really take it to the next level, we have to design the proper experience for this. So my agenda today is the following three things. I'm going to give you a quick recap of where we're at right now. We're going to go through a thought exercise about how we can think about much higher than 4.3 stars. And then I'll show you how our team has done kind of a practical application of this. So this right here is a leaked document from Uber. It was on Business Insider last year. And it shows that for Uber, even 4.3 stars isn't good enough. If you can read the bottom there, the average rating is 4.8. So if you slip below 4.8 stars on Uber, you're in the danger zone. And if you go below 4.6, you're actually at risk of being deactivated. So it's just one example to show that if you're just thinking for your own product or service, 4 stars is great, 4.5, that's not where we are right now. You have to think much higher than that. So we're going to go through a quick exercise to show how you can think higher than the 4 or the 5-star experience. And before we get into that, so as a product manager here at Vendasta, one of the questions that I had our team ask constantly was, what can we do to make our product better? And I had thought that this was a really good question, but we also found that it was really limiting, because all it really got us was that next small incremental improvement. So we came up with a better question, and that was, well, what can we do that would make you run out and tell everyone you know? And the run out and tell everyone you know is not a 4-star experience. It's not a 5-star experience. And we'll show you what that looks like. So 1 star. So the example I'm going to use is Airbnb. And hopefully everybody here is fairly familiar with Airbnb. It's a different way to book lodgings when you're traveling. So I want you to just imagine a 1-star Airbnb experience. So 1-star Airbnb, you show up to the location, the door's locked, the lights are out, you can't get in, nobody's there, and you don't get your money back. You have now not successfully even gotten into the Airbnb. 1-star experience, you will never go back there again. What does a 3-star experience look like at Airbnb? So 3-star is you show up at Airbnb and, well, nobody's there, but they eventually show up. 20 minutes later, they show up, the host opens the door for you, you get in. It's not a great experience, but it's probably okay. So a 5-star experience. So right now, a 5-star experience through Airbnb is this. You show up, and it's exactly what you expected. The host is there, or you can get in easily. The pictures match what they had on the website. It's a fine experience, and it was good. But a 5-star Airbnb experience, you're probably still not going out to all of your friends saying, wow, this is like the most amazing thing. It was just kind of what you expected. So let's look above a 5-star experience. What does a 6-star experience look like at Airbnb? So imagine this, 6 stars, you show up, the host greets you by name, he ushers you in, and there's a bottle of wine on the table. You look in the fridge, there's water there. It's much better than you expected. There's toiletries in the bathroom. Everything is just that much more than you had thought you were going to get when you checked into the Airbnb. So if you arrive at something like this, and it was much better than the pictures, that's probably a 6-star experience. And at this point, you're probably going to think, wow, this is better than a hotel. I might start talking to my friends about this, like, wow, I had this great experience. But we can keep going. So what would a 7-star experience look like at Airbnb? You show up, and the host knows that you like surfing. So there's a surfboard in the kitchen. He's there, and he says, hey, I know you like surfing. I've booked you surf lessons. Here you go. By the way, here's the keys to my own car. Take my car. It's yours for the week. And there's this restaurant. It's impossible to get into, but I got you reservations. So a 7-star experience, now it's starting to sound kind of crazy. We can keep going. So 10-star. What would a 10-star Airbnb experience look like? It's 1964. You're the Beatles. You get off the plane. There's 5,000 screaming people that just love you, and they take you in a motorcade down to your place. It's a press conference. So a 10-star experience is you're the Beatles back in 1964 checking in. But we can keep going. So 11. What does an 11-star experience look like through Airbnb? That is, you get off the plane to your destination. Elon Musk is standing there. It's like, hey, we're going into space. So that is taking it all the way to 11 stars. But when you think all the way to 11, then when you come back to a 7, all of a sudden, a 7 doesn't sound that crazy. I mean, yeah, it's definitely possible that the host can find out, that you like surfing. They can, of course, give you their car, book a reservation for a restaurant. Now, logistically, it could get kind of difficult to do, but it's definitely not possible. So this is kind of like a 7-star experience that you should think about, for your own products or service, that this is what will help get people talking. And so as I was putting this presentation together, I was looking for other experiences like this. So one of them is back in a coworker's talking to me about gas stations. So back in the day, apparently they used to all fill up your car with gas here in Saskatoon for you, full serve. But this particular one did absolutely everything. So not only would they fill up your gas tank, but they would wash your car for you. They'd check your tires. They'd give you a free beverage. They'd give you a free map. They would have a mechanic on duty. So just completely above and beyond what you'd normally expect a gas station to do. And my other example of a 7-star experience is a spa here in town. I mean, this isn't the picture of the spa, but it's a picture of a spa that I'm imagining it would look like. But a spa to give you a 5-star experience, you can all think about what that would be like. They check off all the boxes and you have a good time. But the 7-star experience comes into this. So the coworker was saying that when she comes in to talk to them, they take notes. And so that anytime she comes back, when she talks to somebody else that she had talked with before, they still know all about her and what they had talked about before. So it's that really personal experience. But the really big thing was, unfortunately, her dad had had a heart attack, and he was recovering in the hospital, and she'd missed her appointment. And so she canceled, and she talked to them about that. And then a little bit later, out of the blue, she'd received a handwritten letter from the spa just explaining, that they're really sorry that she was going through this and they were thinking about her. And it was a complete surprise. She was shocked, and she's like, wow, this is something that I was not expecting my spa to be doing for me. So that is the kind of 7-star experience that places are able to provide. So I'm just going to run through this really quick. So as a team, for our own products, we try to run through this exercise, and I'm not going to go through it in detail, but I'm just going to show you how somebody could take this 1 to 11 star experience and applying it to your own product and service. So this example was an email marketing solution that we were integrating with our platform. And all we would do is we'd brainstorm and we would go, well, what looks like the worst experience? Here's some of the things that would make it a 1 star, the worst, and then you keep going. This is a 3 star, a 5 star, and you just write down, like in your mind, like what do you think would each level be? You keep going, 7 star, this isn't possible, all the way to absolutely ludicrous, and of course you'd never do anything at the 11 star, but at least gets you thinking about, stretching your mind. And the point is, as you start building up your product or your service, you're not going to hit the 7 stars right away. But for us, as we kind of circled back on the product later on, and we started looking at things, we found that we were actually approaching a couple of the 7 star pieces. So it kind of gives you something to shoot for that's above the 5 or the 4 stars. One last quick point for this. So as important it is for you to kind of think about what's better than a 4 or 5, it's also critical to get real feedback on what users actually want. So back to the Airbnb example, the founder, Brian Chesky of Airbnb, actually spent, I believe it was close to a year as the product was just launching, living with different Airbnb hosts personally to find out from them directly what it is that they are actually wanting out of the service. So direct user feedback. And this isn't a picture of just any old couch. This is Brian, the founder of Airbnb's own personal couch that he still, I don't think it's a rumor, I think this is a true story, that he actually rents out from time to time on Airbnb. So you can actually interact with them. And what he does is he uses this to get real feedback from real users. So I'm just going to touch on it. It's also important to bring real user feedback into this. So to wrap up, let's not just look for better. If you approach it with a kind of a design thinking mode, you can break free from the 4 or 5 stars and get up to the, at least think about the 8, 9, 10, 11 in order to get you on the path to 7. So to get your product to the point where everybody's talking about it and telling their friends about this. And as a last example, as I was putting together this presentation, I was trying to find examples, like what does a 7 star or a 10 star experience look like in real life? And the minute that I put out the call for that, we had a coworker that burst into the room, and she couldn't wait to start telling me about her. It was a 7 star spa experience, and it was just minutes that it took her to find me, and she was like really excited to talk to me about it. And she wouldn't have done this if she'd have just gotten a great experience or a normal experience through this. So it's only until you push to that level that you really get people talking about your product or service. So I'd like us to think beyond the 4.3 stars, beyond the 5 star, and to try to at least imagine what the 10 star experience could be, and then work your way up to the 7 star. So that's my presentation, that's my ask. Thank you.
Stay here for a second. Does anybody have any questions for Levi? I don't see any hands.
Agreed.
Thanks. All right. So we actually have a little bit of a break. I hear people yelling. Okay, you had a question? No? We'll take a few minutes of a break here. Go top up refreshments, buy 50/50 tickets. Yeah, we'll be back in about 15 minutes.
Good day, good people of Ideas on Tap. A quick update on 50/50s. Now is the time to hop in and get your 50/50 tickets. 50 whole dollars could be yours or more. That means $50 is going to the Heart and Stroke Foundation. Show your generosity, show your greed by getting some 50/50 tickets today.
Give it a test.
1, 2.
don't know. How many times do we do it in a day? See, that worked too. Maybe not. Punch it? Is that good enough? All right. We'll get back started here. Thanks for the other people that have joined since we've been hosting Ideas on Tap here. What we're going to have now is we're going to have a Q&A session, and it will be run by Michael Watkins. And we're going to go through just more of the partner journey. He'll have a bunch of, we'll actually have two other speakers here up as well, so he'll come up and introduce them. So come on up, Michael.
Hello. How's everyone doing? Great. Okay. Now, this is going to be, hopefully, a pretty informal on-the-couch session, and I promise you we will get back to networking as soon as possible. But before we start, I wanted to do a quiz and have a bit of fun. So who's got a phone with them? Get that out. Get ready to go to Google, because we're going to end up on Kahoots, and we are going to have prizes. So I'll give you a bit of time to get to that. I'm going to try and not speak too much Australian. I'm going to try and enunciate my words and speak very slowly. But I've a translator. Thank you. I've been at Vendasta for 6 weeks now and came at the best time of the year. I think you broke a 112-year record, and I had an 85-degree 30-hour turnaround from 45 above to 50 below, pretty much. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about is local is hard. And I had the luxury when I first got out of uni, started in a boutique agency making coffee. And that boutique agency was one of those, everything is awesome and everything is possible. And they always said yes to every single one of their customers. And we always changed what we needed to do just to keep the customer happy. Then after a short stint in lovely sunny Newcastle, I ended up down in Melbourne working for Census, which is one of those Yellow Pages businesses, 138 years of history. And the difference there was that things were big. There was lots of customers, there was lots of time. And that's one of the things that I want us to sort of level out today. When we look at disruption, does anyone have a definition for disruption? Raise your hand if you have a definition for disruptive innovation. There's some guy in 1997 called Clayton who said something that a whole heap of people argued about, and then he said something else, and then people were still confused. And one of the things that I wanted to focus on today was more so the innovation side of things, and that innovation by its definition requires value. And how can we take what we learnt from Jackie's consumer journey and take what we learnt from Levi's delight and actually put it together in some sort of tactical output. I'm lucky enough to have Mark and Alicia here on the panel with us after the quiz. So after you win the prizes, so get competitive because there's only 3. So if you're not on Kahoots yet, you're not doing a good job. But Mark comes from a business that is an old business. It has started off as one product and had to diversify into many more, and it's a big business, and he'll talk a little bit more to that. Alicia comes from a business where it started off as a hobby, and then that hobby became a real business, and then got real customers, and heaven forbid had an actual cancellation, maybe one. Oh my. But her issue is she's growing, and what I want us to do in this panel is have a think about how those two worlds connect. And whether you're an R&D specialist in the room, or if you're a customer experience specialist in the room, or if you're a small business going through the same struggles, this is the panel to talk about the sort of disconnect that we have with our customer base And then afterwards, we're going to do some more networking. So my challenge is to keep to 15 minutes of the panel. But let's do this quiz. So this quiz is going to be super simple. Everyone's already signed in. The quiz is about, do you think it's disruption or not? And so, Ryland, thank you very much. Let's go with the first question. Netflix, streaming video. Is that disruption or fake news? Come on. It's only true or false. Boom. Yes, this is real disruption. All right, next question. Now, if you haven't cottoned on, the quicker you are, the more points you get. And me's winning. Now, me, if you do win, we do need to somehow work out who you are. But anyways, let's go to the next question. Yes, again, but a bit of a split. You know, making international communication free was a very disruptive thing. Colin, well done. Colin, you're at the top of the leaderboard. Next question. Let's keep this moving. Google. Google.com. Oh, we're confident. Aha. What? Right, next question. Birthday boy. Hey. Tesla. Tesla just did a job of making something a little bit better. It wasn't disruption in itself. Next question. Oh, this is quick. Who spent $1,000 on a set of encyclopedias in the room? Wow, I still love my Encarta CD-ROM. LED lights. Uber, here we go. This will be quick. Ready? Wowee. All right. You do get points for this one. Hey. You both win. All right, let's see who the real winners are. All right, Colin and Birthday Boy, we got a hamper for you, some Vendasta swag and some awesome coffee. So see the sound desk in the networking break. That's going to be in exactly 15 minutes, no more from now. Let's move on to the panel. All right, so what I want to frame up as we look at why we're arguing about disruption, right? There's a few rules around disruption, but basically disruption is anything that is done that pushes people out of the way, but there's these rules about you have to be the first to do it. There's questions about, did you just make something better? I don't think anyone cares if it's disruptive or not. I think the thing that we're missing here is it going to make us money? Is it going to keep our customers happy? And if we focus on that, many of the businesses you saw there wouldn't have been disrupted, whether they thought they were disrupted or not. That just wouldn't have happened. And that's one of the big parts here. So this perfectly designed PowerPoint slide makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? We took 35 people off their job for a long period of time. They did 20 workshops before we got to the 180 problem statements, which we then narrowed down to 65 pain points. We mapped across 12 value streams, which is like a customer journey, to get to 13 prioritized activities in 3 clear problem zones. We then used external consultants, 5 trials, 6 focus groups, mystery shopping, market research, workshops with staff, workshops with customers, to find out that the answer was 30. Which I'll need you to bump to the next slide for me, sorry. It wasn't 42, it was 30. And so what did we learn from that? Well, on the next slide you'll see, and there's a buzzer, so I might actually be able to help myself here. Customers that were asking us to do something, and then us actually delivering it, only 30% of the time that happened without an error. That's called rolled throughput yield. And that's the probability of getting from A to B without screwing it up. So let me just say it again this way. Next slide. Boom. Out of 100 people, we had 30 that were happy and 70 that were not happy. And this had me thinking, this is a light bulb moment, because this is really, really simple. We just need to stop those 70 people from being unhappy. And in a business with 138 years of legacy products and improvements and silos and walls and boundaries, what we were missing was that we were adding so much to our customer experience, we weren't even noticing that our customers weren't happy. And that's a lot more worse than one cancellation. That's a lot of money. And it actually cost us nearly $40 million to go through this learning experience. So I went to the CEO with this slide. What makes a perfect charcoal chicken? And I've learnt that you don't call it charcoal chicken here. But basically, coming from Newcastle into Melbourne, I'm quite an observant guy. And I noticed that there's all these charcoal chicken shops everywhere. What's with Melburnians and charcoal chicken? Statistically speaking, per capita, there was more. So it was a fact. And that had me thinking, what makes charcoal chicken good? Now, if you walk into Walmart and you turn to the right and you look at the things in the sweaty bags, I think that's as close as you get to charcoal chicken, right? But when you look at it, it's the charcoal on it, that little bit of charcoal, it just makes that little bit tastier. And you eat a little bit more or you buy a few more. But charcoal on itself doesn't add value, does it? But charcoal done in the right proportion does. And so I'm thinking, this is just process. So this is a very simple conversation, an analogy for my CEO to listen to, so we can start doing something about the 70 people that are having a bad experience. And so here was my punchline that you saw earlier. From a customer point of view, have we overcooked the chook, John? Have we put too much process? Have we lost touch with our customers that we've created an unpalatable product, an unpalatable experience? But charcoal's good. It makes a tasty chicken. How do you reckon that worked out for me? That was my last meeting with John. Yeah. But it was the start of our customer experience evolution ourselves, because from that we actually learned that we needed to focus more on the customer and actually deliver quicker and not use over-processing. Processing is great. Good process is great. But if you do too much of it, you do become unpalatable. So Jackie talked about this funnel, and just to throw a bit of a curveball, I've extended the customer zone, the customer contact zone. I think that's the most important part. It's the part where you actually have the ability to speak to your customers. And whilst the heart and the purchase happens after the research stage, that's sort of not happening as much anymore, because even if you're a software product, people are wanting demos. They're wanting to get in there and try it. And if you're in any other business, they want to sample or they want to have some sort of experience. So that's where you have the opportunity to connect with them. And there's a massive missed opportunity there where you don't just ask them what they want. And we want to talk about trust, because an interesting thing happened to us when we were on the offsite that Jackie was talking about trust. The people at the start of the funnel, demand gen, aces, awesome conversion rate for us, best I've ever seen in the world. And they say, we know about our customer because we get a good conversion rate, we find out what they like, and then we pass on the notes to the next person. Next person says, we ask the customer what we get. They tell us what's really happening, so we start ignoring the notes and we just do what we're told at that point in time. You then get to the next person who says, no, we don't even look at the notes at all, because when we speak to the customer, they always tell us something completely different, and goes on and on and on and on. And everyone thinks they're right, and everyone points fingers and says everyone else is wrong. But we forget about the customer. We forget about one simple truth. You don't walk into an Apple store and say, I got $50,000. You say, well, I think I might want a computer. Can you show me something? Can I experience it? And you are guarded as a customer. You don't want to give it all away because you want to make sure you're getting a good deal. And you know, you want to have that bullshit meter up and make sure you don't get ripped off. And so then when they do say, hey, look, let's have a play, you start giving a little bit more trust away. And so we've got our SDRs and then we've got our BDRs. And so we go from an inquiry explore stage where the SDR's job is to really make sure that the customer's having an enjoyable experience, just helping them explore and helping them learn that there's an opportunity. Once we get to the BDRs, like Myron, he's got to find something to fix and something to actually deliver to the customer. And so that's where it becomes a specific opportunity. And then we get over the dollar sign. So we've signed off, there's money in the bank. And we get to the part where in success, which is a space that I work within, and that's where we've got to make sure we deliver whatever Myron said, right? We've got to make sure that happens for the customer, but also we have to start opening the horizon to what else they may not have told us at that stage to make sure their business is actually successful. And then you get to the best spot. If you do that successfully, the customer will tell you whatever you need to know to make them happy and achieve what they need to achieve. And that in us is the PD stage. So it's the partner development managers. And their job is to optimize, to scale, and how big do you want to go? And we'll make sure you're profitable as you need to be, and we'll just go as far as you want to go. The thing is that not every stage of that is wrong, but the combination of that is trust. So when we talk about the questions, and when I hope you ask lots of questions in the networking to each other, think about some of the sort of tactics that you can do to build that trust up. And stop the finger pointing and start looking at the different points of view of the customer at the different stages. So that's my rant. And this is the couch panel discussion. I'll bring up Mark and Alicia, and I'm super happy that they're here. We don't have a couch, so have a stool. And give them a welcome. So I'll get this Duvalaki to work. That's all right. Boom. Start with you, Mark. So tell us a little bit about your business. I mentioned you're huge, but give us a little bit more context.
So Direct West, we're a digital marketing services company, starting from the MySAS 411 platform, but we've evolved and extended our reach from a website perspective, social perspective, and we are one of the largest digital out-of-home providers now in the province with 45 large-scale, large-face digital out-of-home billboards in the province. Our focus is really about helping that locally owned business succeed in today's challenging world as the local owner tries to compete and win in today's economy.
Cool. And I bet there's a lot of digital transformation happening with your customers as well.
Absolutely. I think from a customer and a digital perspective, it reaches pretty much every consumer, and that then reaches every business in the province.
Now, I might call you Goliath in this panel a few times, and I'd like to introduce you to David, Alicia. Now, you started your business as a hobby. Tell us a little bit more about the business and how you've progressed. Boom. It's got a yellow light.
There we go. All right. Yeah, so we're primarily a wholesale distribution company. It took me it was a hobby when I started, and it took me a little bit to figure out what type of business I wanted Road Coffee to be. But we are predominantly a wholesale distribution company supplying cafes and restaurants, small offices, enterprise offices, and retail locations.
Awesome. So we've got Goliath sitting at about 20,000 customers, and David sitting at going to achieve 200 customers. There's a massive disconnect here. So let's start back to the customer journey and the customer experience. Let's go some of these elements. Do you focus more, Mark, on customer experience evolution or disruption? Tell us a little bit about the investment that you've made into this sort of space?
Okay, so from a customer, from a disruption basis versus a experience evolution experience, it's really about your focus of making the customer the center of everything that you do. Previously, you would take a look at the product and say, okay, what is this product doing? How does it function? What are the features of the product? It's really about turning that upside down and saying, what does that customer experience look like? And your investments and how you look at problems will actually start to form where you invest and where you put those investments from a company perspective.
Okay, and did you take people off the road? Did you go through focus groups, workshops when you were building out a program?
So what we did is we did a cross-functional unit, and we took people from sales, we took people from our operations, from fulfillment, from outside and from our customers, and put them into a room. And when you start to map out your journey that customers go through from a customer perspective, it really starts to frame up and it becomes that aha moment for you that you look at and say, we're having a different conversation than we did in the past. It's so easy to have a conversation around, well, the technology does this, so, you know, X, Y, Z. When you start to frame it from a customer's perspective, you start to say, actually, the customer's waiting and wondering what's going on. That's a much bigger and a different conversation in a room than you would have from a technology or a product perspective. I
think it's an interesting point when you look at like Levi's presentation where we talked about delight, and when you get to that 7 star, I was in the room, and I think it was Sherry runs in, yelling out, I've got an example for you. And that's where you know, that's the difference between someone having a good experience and becoming an advocate. On my earlier slide, you would have noticed I separated advocate from repeat purchase as well, because I think sometimes we're dreaming when we think that everyone needs to become an advocate, everyone needs to come screaming through the room. For general commercial business sense, we just want them to purchase again and again and again and again, and we need to make sure we treat those two different mindsets differently as well, and sometimes not set our heights too far away. Now, starting off as a business, you had full control, Alicia, so talk to us about what delight meant to you in the early days and how much control you had over delight.
We had a lot of control over delight, but an interesting thing that I wasn't thinking about that you just made me think about was when we first launched our coffee beans, we actually only launched with light roasted coffee because I love light roasted coffee. That's what I drink wherever I go, any new city, I check out the local scene. So that's what we launched with. But through talking to customers and potential customers, and then looking at data, I realized it's actually only 5% of the population that enjoys light roasted coffee. And so I very quickly learned I needed to listen to my customers. And so they were like, yeah, this coffee's like, it's good, but like, do you have anything else? And I'd be like,
what do you mean?
Maybe, yeah, what do you want? What are you interested in? So,
do you feel like you're in control? How did you adjust your, like, let's get into the nitty gritty. Like when you had the difficult sales to get across the line, how did you pivot? What did you do?
So as soon as I started hearing feedback like that, literally went back to the drawing board, sample roasting, and was, overnight able to create new roasts and new blends and be like, hey, okay, you didn't like this one, try this one. Yeah, this is great. Boom, was able to make a sale.
At that point in time, did you think of that as customer experience evolution? Did you think of it as a success group or a team, or did you think of it as a thing? What did you think of it as?
I definitely wasn't thinking anything like that. I was just like, sweet, I made a sale. This person wants, okay, let's put them on a contract.
Heaven forbid, business wants to make money. But I think that's an important point, is that we need to always consider the cash register and what's behind the cash register. It's livelihood, family, mortgages, opportunity. And so we've got to get that cash register ringing somehow. Let's move on to the next piece. Now, Jackie loves a funnel. You've got a funnel. Talk to us about the funnel.
Yeah, I knew that Jackie loves funnels, so I thought, well, I would bring a funnel to look at, and I think it really ties our initial conversation around how you frame up about business challenges and opportunities for improvement. When you look at the customer, in this case, we're looking to expose a business that then gets evaluated. During that evaluation, they want to be selected, and they want that post-purchase experience to be good, and then to share that experience on. When you take a look at an actual result, of what takes place, and you actually track that in today's world, when you take the time to actually look to say what's actually happening with my customers, what's taking place, and when you frame it as a customer journey in your organization and what's taking place, you start to see what that actually means for your business. So for this business, they have a lot of exposure, from an evaluation perspective. They're losing about 2/3 to 75% of the customers are churning from evaluation to select, and again, depends on an industry, that could be great. But understanding what that is and looking at it from what's taking place with your customer and then what's taking place with your customers' customers, it really does frame up and create urgency for a business or for a product that you're working on when you just reframe that from a product to a customer and from their actual journey that they take with you.
And when we looked at getting a funnel into the deck just so I could keep my boss happy, we looked at a lot of different funnels and they were all different shapes, which is interesting. And the only way to decode what the shape means is having that customer contact as well. Let's talk about metrics, because we talked about cash registers making a sale. What did you see as success from a metric point of view in relation to your funnel?
For us, this was an interesting one. I wouldn't have thought of this going into it, but every single one of our wholesale clients that goes on and sells our coffee has seen an increase of sales once they switched to road coffee. So that was one we started paying attention to as far as customer success. And same with our office clients. There's like one in particular, like they started off with like 2 bags a month. Mm-hmm. Their staff numbers haven't increased, but they're up to 8 bags a month.
So let's just slow that down. So your success factor was actually the incremental uplift in your customers' sales.
Yeah.
Of coffee.
Yeah.
20,000 customers. What's the most controllable and beneficial metric on your end of things, from what you hear?
For us, is going to be total leads that we provide to our customers. So when we take a look at what amount of leads that is driven into those individual businesses,
and what's a lead?
A lead is an opportunity to have your business message exposed to an individual. When you take a look at that as an opportunity to drive those in, but really the most important factor is conversion for a business.
Yeah.
In the end, it's about what can you do to convert that lead that's generated into an advocate of your business. Kind of Levi's comments about that 7-star, 10-star experience. Even if you can take a few elements of delight and inject that into your business in different areas, maybe it's just one element of a 7-star that you can take, that then really makes a big impact to your business. And sometimes it doesn't have to be something huge. It can be something small that you specifically look at and do something about.
And I like the approach of you have to think of 11 to get to 7, or you don't do it. And it reminded me, Levi, too, is just to change the topic on everyone. But when you're kids, you often think about your adulthood goals and dreams. And every kid has a dream. But then as we grow up, we get conditioned to not have those goals. And every time I come in and speak to my team members and say, what's your 5-year goal or your 10-year goal? They say, But it's because we're being conditioned to not think that far ahead. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's more so because we're being judged and we're scared of going out there and say, I want Mr. Musk to take me to Mars in a car and pick me up from my, Airbnb? That would be super awesome. When we get to experiments, now, we've wasted a lot of money on experiments, but we've gained a lot of money from doing experiments as well. So why did you do experiments? And I choose words sometimes and they're off, but what do you even call your experiments in respect to solving customers' problems within your organization?
So we do prototyping. You start from a design thinking perspective. You do your ideate sessions where you bring in a multiple channel of perspectives. You bring those people in. You come up with an idea. But until you actually see that live and interacting with customers, you really don't know what tweaks need to be made on a product. And that involves our product owners. So from a development perspective, the owner from our product development team would actually go on sales calls, would interact and actually help set expectations, because if your product doesn't have the right expectation set, sometimes it starts out with the failure right there. So if you have that opportunity to experiment, try something in front of a customer, prototype that, get that feedback. Sometimes that feedback is hard to hear, but it actually allows you to react and fill those customer needs, and that customer that gave you that feedback will actually take that and see that you've done something with it, and that really becomes the delight point.
Yeah. So when we look at different feedback at different stages of the journey, and you think of feedback from your customers after they've first purchased your product, you think of feedback of your customers after they've had the product for a while, you think of feedback from when you do a prototype, you think of feedback when they do cancellations. How do you juggle that feedback, and how do you know which one to look at, and what is that approach that you take in your business?
You really need to look at them all. If you take one customer instance and you have something happen in an individual circumstance and you use that as your primary source of feedback, it may lead you down to a path that might not be the ultimate solution for the larger customer base. So first of all, you need to be in front of that customer and understand what they're saying. You also have to talk to the people that are closest to the customer and get their perspectives as well, because the more perspective and understanding you have for the entire customer experience, the better you will be to be able to solve those problems. Because if you don't truly understand all the back-end systems that take place within an organization or outside the organization, you might not be able to solve the problem without having those inputs into your discussions.
Cool. You may not call them experiments at the time, but think back to the moments where you changed your approach to make a sale, and think back to your favorite one that you did, or your favorite experiment. What was that, and why did you do it, and why are you so proud of it?
I'd say probably we do this event with Nutrien once a quarter, and it's like we have to make hundreds of drinks in a very short amount of time. And the first time we did it, it was a long event. It wasn't a short amount of time. And that was some of the feedback we got. It's hard to hear sometimes. It's like, I guess it's kind of slow. And so we took that feedback and as a team figured out, okay, how are we going to make triple the amount of drinks in a third of the amount of time? And we came up with a solution, and we've been doing that for the last couple of years since. And so that was, it was an interesting moment. It was a turning point for us. So we basically just added on another option, and it worked.
Off the back of a failure. So we talked about, you've already defined customer success for your customers. Mark, talk to me a little bit about the difference between customer success for yourself, as in your success in transactions for your business, and your customer's success. How do you balance the two? What do you care more about? Realistically, where do you draw the line?
So I think when we take a look at customer success, it's really about those totalies that we deliver for customers and those transactions and that conversion that takes place for those customers. So that becomes your primary factor of success. So in previous, you would just take a look to say, how are we doing from a revenue perspective, and that becomes your success factor. Today, it's really about what you've done for that customer and what's taking place. From a product perspective, it's definitely different than the organizational perspective.
And how is it different?
Well, from an organizational perspective, we look at total customer satisfaction, business satisfaction. We do net scores as well to ensure what that's looking at, and we do that on an annual basis. We look at that over time, and the timing of feedback is very important when you take a look at customer success and when you collect that feedback. If it's right at transaction and it hasn't completed the fulfillment stages, or they haven't had an opportunity to see what the return is, you might have missed that right opportunity. If it's too late, you're not actually taking advantage of what's fresh in their mind, so you get that quality feedback for your organization.
So you might get a false positive or something.
You might get a false positive.
No, that makes perfect sense. So what was your biggest failure? We've heard a pretty big failure over here, but Mark, what was your biggest failure and aha moment when you've gone through customer experience and you've heard that awkward truth?
Yeah, I think, it was, I still remember it in a boardroom, and I know Shannon, our Director of Customer Service, is here as well, so thank you, Shannon, for coming.
She does all the work, I was pointed out.
Yes, she does, actually.
Sorry for the panel, we'll sort that out next time.
But when we really were sitting there having the conversation, it was about a process, and all the details really don't matter. It was really when we just truly talked about the customer experience and mapped it out stage by stage methodically, writing it down, getting consensus from all the players to what that actual state looked like for that customer. It was really an aha moment. And when you see, and anybody that's done journey mapping, you see 3 unhappy faces in a row, you sit back and go, and you've been operating for a long time, it's that aha moment is what can we do today to make a difference in that journey, inject some delight, and turn that experience around. And until you actually take that time, for me, that was the aha moment of, until you wrote it down and realized that was taking place, you need to do something about it.
Yeah, and that's not actually fixing those bad moments. That is just injecting some sort of happiness in the middle of it.
Yeah, and when you take a look at, in some cases, if you're building a brand new website for a customer, and there's a lot of content to be put into that, and there's a lot of effort to proof it and to go through it. So that creates effort for a customer, and a lot of products and services, there is things that you need input on to get a good quality output, and injecting some specific recommendations and ideas and having proactive content to say, this is where we are and here's what's coming next and here's how we want to help you. It makes a big difference to say, putting those extra points of delight in make a big difference for that customer journey.
What about from your journey point of view, Alicia? Like, are there any particularly common bad moments where you can't fix the bad moment, it's just the bad moment, but you've had to do some sort of workaround to make it not so bad?
Yeah, I think a big aha moment for me was over about 8 months ago when I realized we weren't telling our story very well. And so now we're in the midst right now of trying to tell our story better. So even though the majority of people in this room has probably drank our coffee, something you might not know is there's thousands of people in Laos right now that are have access to clean water just because you're drinking that coffee. So we're doing a lot. My background's in international development, so everything we do as a company is kind of tied back to that. And we've been a part of some really cool projects, but we haven't been telling the story and including our customers in the journey. And so right now we're pivoting so that we can include our customers and be like, yeah, thanks for being a part of this.
You're a successful business, but wouldn't you be kicking yourself if some other brand just rocked up tomorrow and said, hey, guess what, we're helping the rest of the world out, but hit that first? And I think that's a really solid truth on where you have to consider disruption. For disruption to occur, it needs you to not be doing anything about it. And customer experience, just talking to your customers and asking those difficult questions allows you to find out first. And disruption generally takes a lot of time. So if you look and you ask, you can see it. You might not be able to fix it straight away, but you can definitely either inject some delight or start working towards it, but at least you know about it. I'm conscious of networking time, and I love some good questions, so I want to talk about how you actually fit it into the day-to-day, right? So how do you fit it in when you're busy doing your job? How do you prioritize your time? Specifically, if you have that moment where you have the bad spots and you have to force into roadmaps and disrupt and make changes, how do you make those decisions in your organization? And how do you make those decisions in your organization? So I might start with you, Alicia, first.
I'd say for us, our customer service is part of what sets us apart. And as you kind of alluded to, we don't really lose clients that often, which is awesome. But I think like for us, it's going to be learning how to include our customers into the journey. So I feel like it's a hard question for me to ask because I'm wrestling through that right now myself with my marketing team.
Well, you got all the answers. How do you do it? You got a big business, lots of staff, lots of payroll. How do you make those decisions?
Well, I think it involves, when you involve a larger team in understanding what's taking place with the customer, there's more ownership in understanding what that journey looks like from the customer. So if you start to look at it from a customer-centric perspective to say, what's going on with the customer, what can we do, and we start coming up with small ideas. Sometimes you're not changing the world. You just have a list of things that are on the targeted things of what we can do. If you start to get that mentality across a larger team, sometimes it takes another leader and then another individual. Then what you do is you see that proactive understanding to say, I need to take this and I need to own it, and I need to look at what I can do to take ownership of delight.
So ownership, accountability. So here we go. Last one. We'll bring it up on screen. So top tips. I'll get you to start, and then we'll get your top tips as well, and we'll have a bit of a critique of these. Top tips to take away that you can do now.
So I take a look at just really that focus of the voice of the customer. So first of all, listen. A lot of times is taking a look at what reviews are out there, what feedback you're receiving, what are your social channels saying to you, have you claimed them and are you reacting with them and acting with them? Ask. Sometimes it's just a simple question to say, how did we do today? And having that across your organization to say, I'd like to see how did we do today? Look to say, how can we improve? Ask the question to say, what can I do better? What can I do quicker? And how can I make it easier for you to deal with us? The second thing is actually taking the time to write it down from a customer journey perspective. It's easy to say, this is what the journey looks like. Taking that time to actually map it out from a customer perspective, then having that looked at from other people in your organization will help you understand what that looks like. Talk to people that interact with your customers the most. Don't just talk to one unit, talk to them all. But if you're in product research, product design, product development, take the opportunity to reach out to sales, to customer support, to fulfillment, ask to go on a sales call, ask to listen in to understand what's going on. That's going to give you a lot of insight into what you work on a day-to-day basis.
Now, just on that one, I think that's an interesting one, Alicia. Back to yourself. When you talk about that, a customer says they're extremely happy, a customer says they're extremely sad, and you're hearing all of the different stories when you're a smaller business, and you've got that bullshit meter coming up. How did you join the dots when you went through that, and how did you know what to disregard as customer feedback and what to pay attention to?
I think at first it was slowing things down and not reacting right away when someone seems frustrated or their expectation isn't being met. But looking like, okay, like there's one client that wanted us to deliver fresh cream to them every week. It's probably not something we're gonna start doing.
Was it Brendan? Or
no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
That'd be a lot of cream to deliver. Fantastic. You guys buy your own. It's great. Yeah. But if we were to start doing that, all of a sudden our time and like my employees we would need like a refrigerated vehicle for deliveries, and it has all these implications. So instead of reacting, we just quickly learned to slow down, and like it wasn't a problem for any of our other. So listening to clients. Hey, is this a problem for you? No, we just buy our own cream. Okay, cool. We'll just put this one on the shelf for now.
Now, on that last point, taking even the smallest customer improvement and act on it. Difference between big projects, small projects. What's that tip?
When he really takes a look at taking action on something, and I come from a sales background, and sometimes it's all about taking action on something and actually picking up a phone or actually going to see a customer. And customer delight and taking a look at the customer journey is no different. It's you should do something, you've identified it. It's that taking that next step to say, I'm going to do something. And then I'm going to ask again. So it's an agile world. Development's changed. It's changed dramatically in how, if I know there's a lot of developers around the table when the hands went up. From a customer evolution perspective, it's very similar. You have to be agile. You have to be continually improving that experience. And in some cases, it's a backlog of things that you need to do. It just means you got to start doing it.
Cool. We're not playing bingo anymore. If you can move to the next slide for me. What I wanted to do is basically say thank you so much for coming to our panel. What we'd like to do now is do some networking, get some more drinks out there, and really challenge each other on some of the tactics that are around that you can take into action now. My only extra tip is journey mapping is one of those things that sounds very pompous and very hard to do. If you've got a packet of post-it notes, and you just bring all the different contributors from your organization in. So bring in, if you have a developer or a trainer or a sales or whatever, bring them into the room and say, okay, what do we do with our customers now? And what are they meant to do next? And just write on it and stick that post-it note up. Just by doing that process, you're going to understand where the gaps are. And one thing that's even better than doing that is bringing your customers in and having the same conversation with them, because whilst it might be hard, they're going to tell you when you're not making them money. They're going to tell you when you're not helping them. And that's the best sort of feedback that you can get. Take it on, put it on the wall, work through it piece by piece. But thank you so much for today. We have a call out for the next one, small business branding, which is a great segue. Make sure you sign up early so we know what to expect. And let's get some music on and let's start some conversations. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
We're going to do a quick last call for the 50-50, and then we're going to make the draw in probably about 5 minutes or so. So I don't know where the bucket is, but we'll be around, and then we'll do the draw in 5 minutes.